around 1200 BC. There was a drought. It set whole populations in motion. They couldn't be where they were anymore. Same thing happened in India. The largest civilization of the Bronze Age, the Indus civilization, just literally dried up from a drought. That's what happened when the Indo-European speakers came in via Persia to the whole thing, and they were sort of walking on their knuckles, and they picked up the Indus civilization's practices, yoga, and all sorts of other things. So a collapse, you think of, they do something wrong, and they bring it to an end. And here's a lesson for today. What are we going to do wrong? Well, I guess the only parallel you could have is the Indus and Eurasia, Greece and Rome, didn't do anything wrong. You had the Greek-speaking Mycenaean society also come to an end. The population plunged because the crops failed. The palaces ended, and you had the local managers of the palace territories sort of end up as the administrators, and they just kept all of the land in their own, or whatever they could in their own names. You had it was called a dark age, dark in the sense that there's no writing in it. We don't know what happened. You had the syllabic alphabet of the Mycenaean Greek, the linear B, went out of practice. By around the 8th century, you had modern alphabetic writing came in, and you would have Bronze Age, you would have Near Eastern traders, mainly Phoenicians and Syrians, began to revival of trade. You had population began to recover around the 8th century BC, and they began to travel westward to Greece and across the Mediterranean all the way to Italy, and they would establish, usually merchants would do what they did in Mesopotamia. They'd establish a temple as sort of the businessmen's group there, and that would sort of be the public association, the Chamber of Commerce, as it were. And they would deal with, very often they would deal with offshore. For instance, in Italy, the big trade was offshore in Ischia. In the same thing in Greece, it would be offshore. Just like from Mesopotamia, much of its foreign trade would be conducted not in the core itself, but offshore in Bahrain or in the K areas outside of the big cities, outside the walls, where in the cities you'd have the rule of law. Outside the walls, it was all free enterprise. But they brought this practice of charging interest. And they'd say, well, if we will sell you on credit, but you have to pay interest. Well, the whole weights and measures were of the West weren't really very developed. You had every city and state having its own weights and measures, but they were all based on different mathematical bases. That of Mesopotamia was based on 60ths, because it was developed in the temples that would distribute food to the dependent labor force, mainly war widows and orphans. You'd give them the administrative year was divided into 30-day months, and you'd give them a ration twice a day. Twice a day, that's 60. So you'd give them a month ration, here a bushel, and here's a cup a day. That's going to get you by the month. Next month you give them another bushel. Well, that was 60th. Greece was different. Greece had been sort of in the orbit of Crete and Egypt. They used the decimal system of 10. So their rate would be 1% per month, for instance, or 10%, either one or the other. But Rome used divided the measuring system into on the basis of a year. And a year of 12 months, the Rome had 1/12. So Roman weights and measured 12 ounces or troy ounces in a pound. So to make it easier to account, you had the interest rates for each of the, for Rome, Greece, and the Near East, all based on the local fractional accounting. Economists are not taught that. They said that's impossible. You have the free enterprise boys say, no, governments organize weights and measures. That's too public. You had high interest rates of 20% per year, decimalized in Mesopotamia because it was very risky in the Bronze Age. And then in Greece, it was more developed, so you lower the interest rates to 10%. And then in Rome, they established something that worked, a vicious oligarchy, destroying the population. That's what we call stability. Look at that low interest rate, 8.5%. They looked at all as progress without a clue that the answer has nothing to do with a economic basis for this counting. It was simply ease of mathematical accounting. When I first submitted that to, I think, the Journal of Economic Social History of the Orient, they all questioned that. It can't really be so simple, could it? It took them 6 years to agree to publish that, and I think the year 2000 for, and finally they said, yes, that has to be it. That's the only explanation that fits. So all of these discoveries that I had as an outsider have now been accepted. And the reason I was able to get all of the assent from other classical and historians and Assyriologists was they'd refused, ever since the 1920s, cuneiform specialists had almost refused to talk to economists or non-Assyriologists because there was all sorts of social metaphor. Everybody wanted to project on the past their own dreams. The Vatican translated Sumerian documents and called it a temple state, needless to say. The Nazis translated it. You had all over the political spectrum. You had everybody having their own idea of what happened in the ancient Near East. And the Assyriologists feared, especially economists. They said, we have a lot of economists coming to us. Some crazy economists think that they were Keynesian back in the Bronze Age, and they were trying to say, let's spend money into the economy and create consumer demand. I think Warburton is the Egyptologist who does some of that stuff. And there's all of this nutty imagining, what would we do if we went back 4,000 years ago and could tell them how to do it? The Assyriologists didn't want someone with their own preconceptions. But I really didn't know about what happened then, and I knew what was important that I wanted to follow. What was how was money and debt handled? And if I could figure out the monetary and the debt relations of a society, I could work from there to see the dynamics that you and I have been talking about for the last hour or so. For all that. And so they were willing to talk to me because I really wanted to say, can you tell me everything that you can find on debt? I can't read all of these documents. What do you have on debt and the interest rate and the contracts and enterprise and the land tenure documents and transfers and how did they build the palaces and the city walls? Could you tell me what you have? And I was very receptive, and the fact that I was able to raise the money to pay their expenses all, to wherever we had meetings all the way from New York to St. Petersburg, Russia, to Germany. We had them all over, and they were willing to contribute to these volumes to realize, yes, we do want to now. We think we know enough that we didn't know in the 1920s, 100 years ago. We know enough now that we can try to at least tell anybody who's interested, here's how civilizations' economic relations begin. Well, of course, nobody wants to know that because they say, oh, no, this isn't what if it happened that way, then you need a strong government. Then you need control over oligarchies. That's not Milton Friedman's idea of a free market. A free enterprise. Everything that is in the history of from the ancient Near East to classical antiquity. It goes against all of modern economic and political ideology and what people are taught. And that's why you don't have this, the origins of civilization, from, let's say, 2500 BC to about 1700 AD. It's all blocked out. We can't go there because it's so different that the load-up time, it took me, as I told you, I began to join the Harvard group in 1984. It was 1994. It took 10 years for me to familiarize myself, to talk to the Assyriologists, to read the literature. It's as if I had to get a whole separate PhD in ancient Near Eastern anthropology to understand all of this.